You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
The AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AfterBuzz at the Movies.
Good evening, everybody. Bing is for doing, and what are we doing? We're talking about the 2013 Academy Awards that have just wrapped up. My name is John Campea. I host AfterBuzz at the Movies here on AfterBuzz, as well as many other things. Joining me, first of all, to talk about the Oscars, sitting to my immediate right, he is the creator and owner over at Think Hero, and he works with me at AMC Theaters Movie News, Mr. Dennis Tzeng. Dennis, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me here.
Sitting across from me over there, she's the entertainment editor over at IGN. She's Ms. Jennings Roth Cornet. Roth, thanks for being here.
Hello, thank you.
And sitting right beside her, he's a correspondent producer over at Fandango, Mr. Trey Alexander. Trey, looking dapper, sir.
Thank you, sir. I kind of wanted to, kind of feel and embody the part.
I know, you're the only one that really dressed up.
Well,
you're looking very Oscar-ish.
Thank you.
Very Oscar-ish.
Thank you.
All right, let's start the categories. First of all, Argo is the big winner tonight. Argo takes away the big award. But before we get into that, I want to talk to you guys about the show as a whole. What were your biggest surprises? Or let's be singular. What was the biggest surprise for you, Roth, of the Oscars tonight?
The tie, the sound editing tie.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I was really shocked by that. In my memory, I don't think I've ever seen a tie happen at the Academy Awards. I was also glad that Zero Dark 30 won anything, even if it was in a tie, for sound editing.
What about you, Trey? Big surprise.
You know what? For me, it's the Tommy Lee Jones, Ron Jeremy joke in the first 10 seconds of the show. How he was able to tie those two together. You know what? Good job, Seth.
Dennis, what about you? What was the biggest surprise of the evening for you?
I don't know. I for whatever reason, I just didn't think that Brave was going to win for Best Animated Picture.
Oh, wow. You just changed my mind. I was going to say my biggest surprise was Best Adapted Screenplay going to Argo instead of Lincoln, because everything had said it was going to be Lincoln. But you're right. Brave winning Best Animated Picture. And I am a Pixar worshiper, but there's no way Brave should have won that.
No.
Not at all.
I agree. I mean, I think you and I maybe differ a little bit on what we think should have won.
Yes.
But
I would have taken your pick over Brave.
And I would have taken your pick over Brave.
There we go.
John I loved Paranorman, which is very few people would agree with me. Many, many more people will be on Team John with Wreck-It Ralph.
Well, yeah, I thought Wreck-It Ralph, although I really did like Paranorman.
Yeah.
Both were a lot better than Brave. Not just a little better, but a lot better than Brave.
Yeah. I was not surprised by the Brave win. That's what I put down in my Oscar pool to win. Just because I think it makes a lot of sense for how the Academy votes, and it makes a lot of sense in terms of Lasseter's poll and Pixar's poll and things like that. But it's a really boring pick. It's really lazy pick, in my opinion, because these other films were just better. Period.
Oddly enough, and we won't go into a whole Pixar and Brave thing, but I think it's the worst of the Pixar movies.
Yeah. Well,
and it's not horrible. It's not bad. But I think I would watch any of the other Pixar movies again before watching Brave again.
Yeah, I mean, Brave. Listen, Brave. It's not a bad movie.
No,
Pixar really just doesn't make bad movies, and Brave certainly has its charms. But I would say that several of the other films in that category were better, but especially Wreck-It Ralph and Paranorman were better than Brave.
All right, well, let's start by talking about the host this year, Seth MacFarlane. It was a very brave choice to have Seth MacFarlane hosting the show. I thought it was completely out of left field. Trey, let's start with you. How do you think Seth MacFarlane did as the Oscar host?
Honestly, I thought he came out of the box, firing on all cylinders. I wanted more Seth, and then it just felt like he disappeared. He comes out with this great opening monologue and some really great bits, and then I'm excited about what could be transpiring for the rest of the show, and then he disappeared. So I guess I would rate him an A and a C to the Academy for not allowing him to do more stuff. I just think they I don't know, they sanitized him a little bit.
Roth?
The response on Twitter was really funny because the response on Twitter to the Open was that people were feeling that it went over long, but that there were really funny bits in it. In general, I liked it. You know, I do think it could have been trimmed up here and there, but I think that that song, I've Seen Your Boobs, is now an instant classic.
That was fantastic.
And that Gidget Sally Fields bit, if that does not go on in Oscar history, I don't know what's wrong with you people. That was hilarity, pure hilarity.
Dennis, how did Seth MacFarlane do?
I think he did well. I do think that his comedy skews towards the younger audience. So you have like the older audience in that crowd or even at home that probably were like, you know, kind of like cringing a little bit. So, I thought for me personally, he was great, but I think for some other people it might not work.
I think I tweeted about 5 minutes into the Oscar broadcast, I'm getting the feeling that the Academy Awards were not ready for Seth MacFarlane. I thought he was great.
Yeah.
I thought he was wonderful, but that audience was dead. Like they were just not responding to him the way his material deserved to be responded to. And I love the way, humor aside, that he kind of came out of the gate because it had to be addressed. I've been saying for a month now that the biggest shame on as far as attacking Oscar's credibility is the fact that Ben Affleck, the guy that every other major awards show on the planet says is the best director of the year, doesn't even get nominated at the Academy Awards.
Right.
He comes out of the gate and he says, you know, Argo, a film about the classified mission, so classified that the Academy didn't even know that the director existed.
That's right.
And I love the way that he attacked that right out of the gate, and it kind of lifted the fog I felt was going to kind of be hanging over the Oscars this year going into the show. That lifted it off, and I just thought he was great.
Yeah,
they just didn't buy into him.
It's funny because I mean, I really thought he did a great job overall too. Like I said, in general, I think there are things that could be tweaked here and there. But what's funny is I was observing on Twitter, a lot of people were getting offended by him, and I was like, have you met him? It's Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah, really.
You know,
Yeah.
this is him on level 1.5. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think anything he said was terribly offensive personally. I thought he was just being Seth MacFarlane.
No, I think looking over Twitter, and you and I off air were talking about certain people that we know that are going to take issue with Seth MacFarlane no matter what he says. Like there are people out there who are just not Seth MacFarlane fans that were just waiting with their smartphones in hand to tweet something negative about the next thing Seth MacFarlane did, no matter if it was good or bad. They were just going to say something horrible.
Right.
I thought he was sharp and witty, and you know nothing's off limits and everything's satirical.
And he can sing and dance, people.
Oh,
yeah.
What do you
Wow.
want from your
Kidding.
comedian? You know,
Nobody should be that talented.
Nobody should be that talented. I'm serious. Like Seth MacFarlane blows my mind with his talent. He really does. And I happen to be a big Seth MacFarlane fan. But sure, I get it. I mean, especially the older set. What's interesting about though this Academy Awards is that you get some of the very traditional, like boring yawn Oscar older set crowd decisions like Brave. But then you also sort of get the sense that it is starting to shift when Spielberg doesn't immediately and for no good reason sweep it with Lincoln.
Right.
What Lincoln won, Lincoln should have won.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was very happy with that. I was really excited to see that and to see Argo win Best Picture.
You know, I was starting to think one of the biggest locks, we were talking about this during the show, one of the biggest locks, look, there were 3 locks. There was Anne Hathaway winning Best Supporting Actress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all knew that was going to happen. I can't remember what the second one
We
was.
thought Adele was going to
Daniel
win.
Day-Lewis.
Adele winning, yes, Best Song, which I've got to rant about that later. But the third one was that we all knew Daniel Day-Lewis. But I'll tell you something. When Lincoln did not win for the screenplay, and then it didn't win for director. I was starting to think, okay, wait a minute. I know in my head that Daniel Day-Lewis is a lock, but I'm not going to fall over anymore if they suddenly say Denzel Washington or Hugh Jackman, who happened to be who I would have given it to, but no complaints about the great Daniel Day-Lewis whatsoever. But he did win, so that kind of locked that up. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of people thought this was just going to be Lincoln's year.
Yeah, I really didn't think so. I mean, it's funny because in kind of like the precursor season, it seemed like this year was up for grabs, that more than any other year that, I mean, yeah, there were certain things that were a lock, like those 3 things were, but more than any other year, things seemed sort of up for grabs. And I think that the fact that neither well, first of all, Zero Dark 30 got tanked very early on, and it wasn't going to see any play here, unfortunately. But both Catherine Bigelow and Ben Affleck not being nominated for Best Director, you would think by default that was going to go to Spielberg, right? But it's funny, like I really thought it would be Ang Lee. I was not surprised that it was him.
Wow.
Because people like Life of Pi, you know, and that is the director's movie. I mean, that is totally his vision. It's not about the performance. Lincoln is about that performance. You know what I mean? Life of Pi is totally about Ang Lee's vision and how he executed it.
I think I agreed with you the moment that, once again, I go back to that screenplay award. When Lincoln did not win for screenplay, my head switched and I went, Ang Lee is going to win Best Director. And, you know, by the way, it's in, if you're keeping count, Life of Pi is the big winner for tonight. It's won the most awards. It won 4.
Yeah, you're right.
I got the count here in front of me. So it won 4, Argo won 3, Les Mis won 3, and Lincoln won 2. So I really spread out.
Did Lincoln only win 2?
It only won 2.
Okay.
So very spread out. None of these, no Lord of the Rings style 11-win domination.
Well, we're going to see less of that with this whole 9 nomination thing, I think. I think you're going to start splitting the votes.
Well, I mean, the Oscars have a neat, and chime in here with me if I'm wrong here, but the Oscar system now is that there's not going to be 9 nominees every year.
Yeah.
It's going to be anywhere between 5 and 10.
Right.
Right.
But just having more 9 nominees means more
Yes.
diversification on people's opinions and feelings, so you're going to get it more spread out.
And I think you're just starting to see slowly more diversification in the Academy itself, more diversification amongst the voters and the people that are making these decisions. And over time, I think that will start to shift
You
more
mean
and
less
more.
old white men? That's less old white men.
I mean, slightly less.
Well,
old
obviously
white men.
nobody saw the Avengers, you know, because I think that could have easily been in the top 10. So, yes, they're getting more diversified. They're still not really acknowledging a lot of some of the bigger special effects type films that I think at times are due.
I liked what was nominated, though.
Oh, no, I did. I'm
thought
not
it was
bashing
a
it.
nice
I'm not
broad
bashing it.
spectrum. You know what I mean? Beasts of the Southern Wild was never going to win, but I'm excited that it was nominated because maybe a few more people saw it.
Or going to go see it.
Or
now.
going to go see it, yeah.
Speaking of the Avengers, very conspicuous. Why was Chris Hemsworth not on stage when they brought out the whole
Shirtless.
Avengers?
Shirtless.
And it wasn't just Hemsworth. It was also Black Widow.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson, right.
But, I mean...
Who you would probably like to see
Also shirtless. I mean, that all works, too. But that was kind of weird.
Aren't they shooting Thor right now?
They are, but
Yeah.
you think for the Academy Awards, they
Well,
give
she
12 hours off?
She's not in Thor. She's in Cap.
No, not her.
Yeah, not her.
No, we're talking about Chris Hemsworth. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris
Hemsworth,
Hemsworth.
yeah. And Kat Dennings was actually tweeting during the show, so...
I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Why weren't they there shirtless? For the sake of humanity.
All right, let's talk about the winner for Best Actress this year, which was Jennifer Lawrence. Personally, myself, I would have given the award to Jessica Chastain, personally. No complaints about Jennifer Lawrence, though. Her performance, she's the highlight of Silver Linings Playbook, her performance. All due respect to Bradley Cooper as well, but she was fantastic in that film. Dennis, were you surprised she won? Any complaints that she won? Is she your pick? How did that go?
I don't know. I mean, I was fine with her winning. I think it wasn't a surprise because of all kind of the negative attention that Zero Dark 30 has been getting lately.
Yeah.
Like it had some momentum. Like I think in December before it actually got released, when it got unlimited release, but then all this controversy over the torture issue came out, and that just killed all momentum for it.
What about you, Roth?
I think it's a big conspiracy. Now, I don't know. I mean, I think what happened with Zero Dark 30 is really kind of unfortunate and sad. I'm not even saying that it was my favorite film of the year, but I think that for it to just get shoved aside like that stinks. And that especially Jessica Chastain, who... It's not just this performance with Jessica Chastain. That's my thing. Is like, I love Jennifer Lawrence. I think she was great in that film. I have no problems with her winning. But Jessica Chastain has consistently delivered stellar performances, one right after the other, very unique, very different for the last 2 years. And it's like, when is this woman going to have her moment? I mean, she's young, so she'll have it. But it's just kind of like, I feel like that should have maybe been her win, if not the little girl or the old lady.
Are you saying that she's going to be the Susan Lucci of...
Oh, God forbid. I certainly hope not, because she just...
No, she will not be.
Yeah,
She's
she will
way
not
too
be.
talented. Yeah. No,
What about you, Trey? Jennifer Lawrence win.
Look, I wanted Jennifer Lawrence to win. She's, you know, I love everything that she does, except for the last house at the end
of the street. Yeah.
But I thought she was deserving. The thing is, it's a toss-up because they're both extremely powerful performances. And if I were to watch them side by side, you know, I would have a tough time choosing. But I like Jennifer Lawrence. I just thought it was a more raw, emotional performance. So
speaking of Jessica Chastain, when I did the press junket for The Debt, I sat down and, I mean, lucky me, I had a chance to sit down and interview Helen Mirren. And before we went on, before there was a little, Roth does, both do a lot of junkets. You know, sometimes they have little problems. You sit there for like 5 awkward minutes waiting for the camera to start rolling. But Helen Mirren's actually very chatty. And we started talking about Jessica Chastain, who I had just seen in The Help, and I loved everything about The Help. And we started talking about Chastain, and Helen Mirren said, she is going to be the next Meryl Streep. Helen Mirren said this of Jessica Chastain. She is going to be considered one of the great actresses for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
And when you see her doing films like going from The Help, where she's one type of character, to The Debt, to Zero Dark 30, where she's a completely different type of character, to Mama, which is she is a completely different type of character, and she knocks it out of the park every single time. And she's beyond beautiful and has so much grace, so eloquent, so well-spoken, carries herself like a true Hollywood movie star. This lady is going to be around for a very, very long. Now, juxtaposed against Jennifer Lawrence, who I loved her in Silver Linings Playbook. No complaints that she won. But you brought up House at the End of the Street, which was not just a bad movie, she was bad in it. So I want to see Jennifer Lawrence, and who's still very young, if she can evolve into the type of performer that Jessica Chastain is, who is just perfection every time she goes out there.
But you know what the funny thing is, too, bringing up Meryl Streep? I think that Kramer versus Kramer was, I mean, it was very early in her career that she won Best Supporting Actress for Kramer versus Kramer, and then Sophie's Choice was not too long after that. So actually, it's looking like, in the eyes of the Academy, Jennifer Lawrence is following more of that trajectory of the Meryl Streep, and it's unfortunate because Jessica Chastain is coming out and, like you say, knocking it out of the park every single time. And like Meryl Streep, it seems to be able to just transform herself every single time. You know, so it's just, to me, I think that's, but also, you know, I don't know if you guys saw Amour, but that was another possible win right there. You know, she, and she's not going to get nominated. She's not going to get nominated again, you know?
What are you saying? Are you saying that...
I'm not saying anything.
Look, I think with Jessica Chastain is that she's going to get her due. I think a lot of the roles that you see Jennifer Lawrence playing are younger. You know, they're younger roles. This was a much more mature role for her, but, you know, she's now going to go back to Hunger Games, and, you know, we'll see where her career goes now that, you know, when she does 2 more of those. I think Jessica Chastain is going to have, you know, I think her career is going to go much more, you know, upward, where I think you'll see Jennifer Lawrence kind of mellow, you know, kind of level off a little bit because of the movies she's going to be doing. She's doing also the X-Men films. So, I mean, you're not going to see her doing these Oscar-winning performances or get nominated, you know, for a performance in a Hunger Game or an X-Men. So.
But her career's in a great spot right now.
It has.
Because she's getting these, she's now got an Academy Award. She gets these critical acclaim films, but she's very comfortable and very popular in these big mega blockbuster series as well. Look, Dana Day-Lewis is not about to be the next Superman.
No.
You know,
that would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
We know it would be a good performance.
It would be.
I think he'd be, you know what, I, in all seriousness, it will never happen, but I actually think he'd be better as like a villain.
I
But
would.
anyway,
I don't know that
love
he'd
to
be
see that?
better, but I would love to see him as a villain.
Imagine him as Lex Luthor.
He would be amazing.
Now you're giving me a boner. Okay, so let's do. Dennis, let's start with you on this one. Quentin Tarantino gets his Oscar for Django. Were you surprised? Is it about
no? I'm not surprised because in a way it's almost like their consolation prize for him. Because because he didn't get nominated for Best Director. The last time he won an Oscar was for original screenplay as well. He didn't win for. He did get nominated for Best Picture for Pulp Fiction, but he didn't win. So it wasn't too surprising. It was a great script. You know, I thought it could be tightened down a little bit, but you know.
Yeah, I love that he won this, and I've given grief to Quentin Tarantino for other films different times, but Django, I think is his best film. Everybody disagrees with me on that, and that's fine. I'm in the minority. But the script is so smart, and it's just so sharp and so quick, and just I just love this script so much. For me personally, I was thrilled that he won that. What about you, Roth?
I think he's looking a little like J. Edgar Hoover, but that aside, I was really excited to see him win. I love Django too. I mean, and I know everybody's like, but it's not as good as Inglourious Bastards. I really don't ultimately. I mean, I really don't. Like, I think it's just as good, and I enjoyed it. I think it's very different. I think both of them could have been trimmed down ultimately, but I love Django. I was probably a little more excited to see Christoph Waltz win because I thought, oh, they're not going to give it to him because it's a partially comedic performance, and they just dismiss comedy. But to me, that was what was so brilliant about his performance. Every choice he made was absolutely right. Every single moment was the right choice to make, be it funny or dramatic. So I loved that he, in his speech, Tarantino acknowledged, like, my script is really nothing if I don't have the actors that are going to bring these characters to life. And he's right. It's not so much the stories that we're going to remember a little bit, but it's the characters that he creates that you really remember from Tarantino movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's his super strength.
Yeah, no, look, I thought it was awesome. I would love to see Quentin win all the time because to me, I just feel like he's the kind of guy. He's kind of the thorn in the Academy's ass because he's so unconventional and he's so I don't give a crap. I'm going to do my movie. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And I love that about him. And people just love to work with him. So man, you know, more QT, man. More QT. And you know what's funny? I interviewed him back during the Kill Bill, and I said to him, I go, you know, is there anything you haven't done yet that you want to do? He goes, I really want to do a spaghetti western. So he'd been thinking about this for a long time.
Yeah, the strength of Quentin Tarantino has always been his dialogue and his characters. Those are the things he does better than just about everybody else. Because you take away the amazing dialogue and those really great, solid characters, I contend that some of his movies that are considered all-time classics lose a lot of their shine. But then again, you take any director's greatest strength, and their movies are going to lose a lot of their shine. I'm glad you brought up Christoph Waltz, because I told the story as we were watching the film. When I first saw Django Unchained, I remember I walked out of it loving it, and thinking to myself, what is a big shame here is that everybody's only going to be talking about Jamie Foxx and Leonardo DiCaprio, which they were great, don't get me wrong, but they're only going to be talking about them. No one's going to be talking about Christoph Waltz in this film, which to me was a shame because he and Samuel L. Jackson in this film made this movie to me. But no one's going to pay attention to what they did. And then lo and behold, he gets nominated. And I'm thinking, that's crazy. He got nominated. How great. Never win in a million years, but I'm so glad they at least nominated him. I was so happy that he won. And you know, I didn't think that the problem was going to be that his performance was partially comedic. I thought they would dig him because when you're talking about certain traits, there was much similar between his doctor in this film and the hunter in Inglourious Bastards. Like they kind of talk a little bit alike. And I thought, I hope they don't hold that up against him in this case because that's what this character needed, and he brought it. So yeah, I was just thrilled. What about you on Christoph Waltz?
Well, I think what helped him win was, I mean, of course he won for Best Supporting, but he was almost the co-main lead in that movie.
Yeah, he really was.
When you think of, okay, obviously Jamie Foxx is the main character, but Christoph Waltz was right up there with him. Yeah. So.
What about you, Trey? Your thoughts on Christoph?
Look, I was right with you. I thought it was a surprise that he won, but you know what was interesting is a lot of people were actually, at least on Twitter that I saw, were kind of disappointed because they felt that, gee, he just got the Oscar for the same character. What you know, in what you were just saying. So it didn't stand out like that to me.
Yeah, no, it didn't stand out that way to me either. I mean, I can see sort of making those parallels, but I thought I wanted him to win. I thought he deserved it. I'm glad he won. You know, I wouldn't have cried if De Niro won or something like that. If Tommy Lee Jones won,
I would have cried.
I guess it would have made for a lot of great memes, but other than that, I wouldn't have been too excited.
I'm just glad De Niro just, you know, acted in a movie, you know. Like,
actually
he actually tried.
He actually tried and made an effort, and he was quite good.
He was good.
Yeah. Anyway, we got a tweet, you guys. Anna Salmaso says Jessica Chastain is probably going to be the next Kate Winslet. She's going to get like 4 or 5 nominations before she wins.
Yeah, because
she's on her way.
Like 9, 10.
And then is she gonna win for a not so good movie like Kate Winslet did? The Reader, come on, come on.
Speaking of Kate Winslet, and I want to talk about memorable moments before we start talking about what actually won Best Picture and things like that. I already mentioned that I was really put off by how dead that audience was.
Yeah.
And the moment that it really clicked for me that this audience is dead is when William freaking Shatner comes on screen. That audience should have erupted. I thought that was brave. I thought that was bold. I thought that was original that they were doing something like that. And who doesn't love the Shat?
I love it.
I mean,
and it's funny because I saw a bunch of complaints about it on Twitter also, and I was like, no, this just got amazing. Like they're doing the mixed timelines out of the Star Trek movie. I mean, to me, the whole conceit of it was really funny, and then plus it's Shatner. Like, why are you not having fun with this?
I mean, it could have been done better.
I agree.
I agree. I think it could have been done better. But this fact that he came on, and you just heard just a small drizzle of, oh, ha, ha, ha. It's like, oh, this audience is dead.
I think they're so high strung. I mean, I feel like at the Golden Globes, you know, no one.
They let them drink.
They're drinking. They're drunk. Yeah. No one takes it all that seriously, and they're a little more apt to have fun with it. You know, you got the ladies up there joking around, they're having fun. I think everybody's so high strung because it's so high pressured at the Academy Awards that no one wants to like. Plus, the ladies can't breathe in those dresses.
Well, okay, I'll give you that. But I'm like, what's high pressure? What's high pressure? You've been nominated. Sit there and either you get your award or you don't. Then afterwards you drink. What's high pressure?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen audiences before at the Oscars cut loose, like when Steve Martin hosts or whatever. But it's just, I still think it goes back to that whole thing that Hollywood, maybe not Hollywood as a whole, the Academy was not ready for Seth MacFarlane. Because he comes out there, look, he's making jokes about orgies back at Jack Nicholson's house.
Awesome.
Which I thought was awesome.
I know.
He's talking about the secret meeting at the synagogue.
Awesome.
I thought that was awesome.
Cocaine trees or whatever.
Trees. He's talking about all this stuff. And what he said about Q Wallace, that's the star of Beast of the Southern Wild. I can never pronounce her first name, so I just call her Q Wallace.
Yeah.
Q, when he says,
Little
so
Q.
Q, you're just 16 years away from being too old for George Clooney.
For George Clooney.
I thought that was hilarious.
Which is true.
Like, all these were great.
And no one was smiling when they would show the camera on them. It was like they were offended. And
there were a couple people that looked offended. So John, I think what you're saying is the song of the Oscars is I Don't Think You're Ready for My Teddy.
Well...
No? Anybody? Pun?
No.
Totally, but terrible pun.
No, the song, where I thought you were going with that was, I thought, I'm going to always remember We Saw Your Boobs.
yeah,
Yes.
no.
That was
I'm gonna remember
awesome.
that forever. I
Yeah.
thought that was fantastic.
Yes.
Speaking of Kate Winslet.
Speaking of Kate Winslet, that was an amazing song, and I loved it. But let's move on to songs.
Okay.
Because you got a bone to pick with
Yeah.
Oscar Best Song.
Okay, look, this is a gripe of mine going back for years. Look, I'm not a passionate music fan, but I love music as much as the average person does. Love music. I really respect musicians. Music is part of the reason why Les Mis was one of my absolute favorite films of the year, blah, blah. But I do have an issue with the role of not score, which is something that plays over about 70% of a movie, but original song. I don't think it should be a category at the Academy Awards. Especially when you're considering about 70% of these songs that get nominated are either songs that play at the end credits, or in the winner's case this year, is a song that plays for 2 minutes over the opening credits and is not a fundamental part of the movie as a whole. And so what you're getting now is these Oscar winners who have music playing them off, whatever. We can't because we need all this time to play media from a different type of a different medium. This is about the movies. This isn't about go to the Grammys for all the music. Adele is awesome. I love Adele, especially when she reamed out Chris Brown at the awards the other night. I just fell in love with her even more. But I also love LeBron James. I don't want to see him come out on stage at the Academy Awards and show how great he can slam dunk a ball.
I kind of do.
And I am in the minority. I know I'm in the minority. Most people love it, so I know I'm wrong. But I'm just saying that's the way I feel about it. Anyway, what are you about to say?
I mean, it's funny that you're saying, like this, it plays over opening or close. Often the song plays over opening or closing credits, and it isn't in the movie itself. That's true. But it's interesting because in the case of Skyfall, with Bond films, the opening credits are in fact a huge part of the film. It's something that they pay a lot of attention to. It's something that we pay a lot of attention to as Bond fans and watchers. It's something that is talked about afterwards. So I would say that in the case of James Bond, oddly enough, that the opening credits and that song does lead you right into the tone of that movie. It tells you what that particular Bond movie is going to be about.
Sure, but using that same logic, the category Best Director every film has a director. The category of best lead actor, every film has lead actor, lead actress, cinematographers, editors, blah, blah. Now you're talking specifically, well, Bond films. Well, can't you say that, well, Bond films, a key core essential element to Bond films is who's going to play the sex vixen in this one.
Yes.
Well, then create a sex vixen, even though it doesn't apply to most movies.
I don't think anyone would argue with that category,
No, probably
John.
not. You're right. I'm probably going down the wrong
Then we
path
become
on this one.
and then it becomes the MTV Oscar
Yes.
Award.
So, I mean, but I know everybody loves music and everybody loves seeing Adele perform. Although, who would have thought she got upstaged by Jennifer Lawrence? Or Jennifer Lawrence.
No, Jennifer Hudson. I mean, that was
like, holy smokes,
No, I
that was
think they
powerful.
screwed her on the mic. They really screwed
did.
her on the mic, and I think
You think
that-
so?
Yeah, I do. I really think that they needed to boost her mic because she had a live band, and Jennifer Hudson just had a track that she was singing to, so that the levels were off.
Yeah, it's true. But still, she was amazing.
She was.
Adele was amazing. It's like, you know what? We had guys literally getting cut off their mics for accepting their awards. Cut out the live performances of songs. Give 12 extra seconds to each recipient, award winner.
And then have Adele sing them off.
And then have
Adele sing them off. As opposed to Jaws?
See, I don't mind the music. I just think they had too much of it. Like
Especially this year.
Yeah, I
this
thought
year
so
was,
too.
Like, why was the whole Chicago and the Dreamgirls thing?
And by
it
the
didn't make
way-
any
honoring
sense.
musicals.
Okay.
Yeah, but it doesn't really make sense. I mean, you had James Bond. You're honoring 50 years of James Bond. So
Yeah.
you have Goldfinger and you have Skyfall and whatnot. And then, you know, I think Barbra Streisand singing Memories was good, but she should have done it over the
I'm
actual.
glad you brought that up.
Over the actual,
Yeah.
you know, pictures instead of right after. So I just felt like they started adding all this unnecessary stuff. Like, really, I don't understand why Chicago and Dreamgirls were in the
Well,
show.
why was Chicago
agree
in
with
it
you.
2 times?
Yeah.
That's what I didn't understand. I was like, Chicago times 2, Muppet 0, Oscar fail.
It should have been a 0. I think what they were trying to do is, you know, they were trying to stretch. I say stretch in that they were trying to tie it in with Les Mis. So, you know,
Les Mis can stand on its own.
exactly. And you could have just had that musical segment in the the show and done away with the others. I agree.
Yeah. Now, in speaking about music, talking about Les Mis, I'm going to apparently contradict myself by saying one of my probably my single favorite moment of this Oscars was when the Les Mis cast came out and sang One Day More. I love that part. Now, unlike Chicago and Les Mis, it's a little different with songs because that constitutes the entire film. The film is music, so if you're going to celebrate that film, do it with music. I
Right.
get that. I love that. I just like to see the individual. But yeah, these little decisions they made. Barbra Streisand should have been singing that song while the In Memoriam was playing. And in past, you brought it up, it's something I didn't realize. In the past, in the In Memoriam, when a face and a name would come up, respectfully, the audience was allowed to give applause for that person. It felt awkward
Yeah.
that it was dead silent as these names and faces were coming up on stage with
And then you would
nobody
hear
singing.
like a little.
I was like, oh yeah, we're not
tiny
supposed to
tear.
clap.
Yeah.
We're not supposed to clap.
I was at the Academy last year. I got to go, and right before that, coming out of the commercial break, they tell the audience, please don't clap, until the end. So it's they kind of give the audience that cue, and it's because of in the past they were doing that, and I guess it was distracting or something.
some people get
some
bigger
people got
applause
more.
than
That's right.
others.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
That is awkward. That is frankly, that is a little awkward.
It is awkward, but it's inevitable.
But the
Yeah.
dead silence was more awkward.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
It
that's
really
what
was.
I thought. All right, let's get to the big thing of the night, and then we'll close with our closing thoughts. Still going in. If it wasn't for the fact that Argo was landslide winning everything, I still didn't think Argo would win. Because, as I pointed out on my other show, it hasn't been since 1989 that a film nominated for Best Picture won when its director wasn't even nominated for Best Director. Driving Miss Daisy, 1989. That's how long it's been. So in my head, I'm like, this is the same Academy that really dropped the ball by not nominating Ben Affleck. They're not going to give Best Picture to Argo. And Argo starts winning everything at every other award show. So I thought maybe there's a chance. Maybe there's a chance. Now, personally, my favorite film of the year was Les Mis. It haunts me to this day. Just seeing clips, I get choked up for the film. Aside from that, probably The Avengers. But then outside of that, I wanted Argo to win. When I was interviewing Ben Affleck for Argo, and I got people tweeting me this all night too, reminding me about this. When I talked to Ben Affleck, I said to him straight up, I said, dude, if you do not win, or if you do not get nominated for Best Director at the Academy Awards this year, because he didn't get nominated for The Town, he didn't get nominated for Gone Baby Gone, I said, I'm going to slash people's tires. And
So whose tires did you slash, John?
I can neither confirm or deny that I went out and did that in West Hollywood. But I mean, I was thrilled that he won. I love seeing him on stage. The fact that you can tell it meant a lot to him. And for those of you at home keeping score, who would have thought of this 6 years ago? Matt Damon, 1 Oscar. Ben Affleck, 2. So who would have thought that score count would be there 5 or 6 years ago? I loved his acceptance speech. It was so genuine and real. And I love that he kind of addressed, look, you can't have hard feelings. Look, if it wasn't going to be Les Mis, which is the film I really did want to win tonight, but I knew it wasn't going to, I was thrilled for Ben Affleck and Argo. What did you think, Dennis?
Well, I mean, on that subject matter, this is what I think. The Oscars need to change the director's category and make it as many as how many Best Picture nominees there are. Because to me, movies are a director's medium. And so when you're nominating like 9, 10 pictures, but you're only nominating 5 directors, there's something off to me. Because then something like this happens. You know, like, okay, this won Best Picture, but it didn't even get a nomination for Best Director. So I think that's something that should be changed.
Actually, Roth, you tweeted something really neat after the show, right at the end of the show. I don't know if you tweeted or retweeted.
Oh, and it directed itself.
It said, look, Argo wins Best Picture, and amazingly, it directed itself.
Yes.
Anyway, so what do you think overall about who won?
I would agree with you, Dennis, that's true. There should be more of a correlation. But it's funny because there's not always a direct correlation anyway, because I remember when Prince of Tides was like nominated for everything, Barbra Streisand was not nominated for Best Director. So that was another film that it was like, and it directed itself. You know what I mean? With Argo, I think that something different happened, actually. I think that because Ben Affleck wasn't nominated, because that was perceived to be such a snub, it gave that film momentum to win because they were almost awarding him Best Director by giving it Best Picture. And it did start to sweep. Argo started to win everything. Ben Affleck started to win everything. And because he wasn't nominated at the Academy Awards, I think people gave Argo their Best Picture vote to give it to Ben Affleck in a way for Best Director by default. So I think that actually helped the film win in a weird way. Also, I think Daniel Day-Lewis, although I loved Affleck's speech, won for Best Speech.
That was a great, that was a great speech.
Him and Meryl Streep on stage together, that's a ridiculous amount of talent.
Yeah, that's just melting your brain kind of talent. I mean, right there. But anyway,
I'm just going to repeat what you guys said. You know, I really felt that Ben got screwed for not getting nominated for the director. I wanted him to win for Argo. I loved Argo. My favorite picture of the year most definitely was Ted. I don't know about you guys, but
my #1 comedy of the year.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, you know, I'm a Ted fan, so I'm looking forward to Ted 2. I got a question. I'm trying to recall the nominees for Best Director. Did the director for Beasts of the Southern Wild, did he get nominated?
No.
For Best?
He wasn't. No.
Okay, see, that's interesting too.
But yeah, 9 Best Picture nominees.
Yeah, so
5 Best Director.
He should have easily been nominated.
No, he wasn't nominated.
He should have easily been
But
nominated.
you know, Tarantino's not nominated. You have Catherine Bigelow's not nominated. But their pictures are. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
No,
I agree with you.
Wait a minute. I take that back. I believe he was nominated. Actually.
He was.
Was he?
I believe
Okay.
he was nominated.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Well, you know, it's amazing how far $100,000, I think, is what that film cost, can go, and that to me, it's just made unbelievable, the production value and the performances that he pulled. So he should have been nominated.
Before we get to our closing thoughts here, I want to go back to something, Dennis, you just said, because I've never thought of this, and I think you made absolute perfect sense. I believe the Oscars need to start creating a correlation between its Best Picture nominees and Best Director, because this is a director's medium. It absolutely is. Like, I'm sorry, you can't tell me this was the best story of the year, but it was conveyed through...
Who?
You know,
Magical Nobody?
Yeah, through a magical nobody. Look, you can talk about great performances in a movie, but what is the primary job of a director? To bring out great performances out of their actors, to give the actors what they need, to give the performances they do. This is a director's medium. That movie is the totality of what the director brought to it, including the work, obviously, the collaborative work of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people as well. But it all goes through that chair.
But I think that's even more why it is a director's medium, because it is the collaborative work of hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of people, and that one Well, I mean, obviously in huge studio films, it's kind of a little bit more by committee and things like that. But in a lot of cases, definitely in the case of something like Beast, that person has to communicate a vision to all of those different people
and keep it going
and make it cohesive. Have them, you know, shine in the areas that they shine in, but also fulfill their vision. And to me, it is insane to think that this is the best picture and it directed itself. That's insane, you know?
And we, you know what, we were talking about this. We can think of it in the opposite way too when we bring up the Star Wars trilogy, and you're seeing these brilliant actors that didn't act so brilliant. You know, that's a reflection,
of the
director,
of the direction, of the editorial choices, everything.
I think it's weird though. You know, Ang Lee won, and I was happy that he won, but this is the second time he's won where his picture did not win. I mean, that's a little odd, because usually there is a lot of the correlation is best picture, best director, like a lot of the time.
Yeah, it was weird that Hulk didn't win, you know? I mean,
by the way, one of my other favorite jabs of the moment from Seth MacFarlane was great, and it was very gutsy to say, maybe even a little bit cruel. We said, look, if you win an Oscar, you're guaranteed to have a long and active career, like Jean Dujardin from last year. Now he's everywhere.
He's everywhere.
That was brave to say. All right, let's go into our closing thoughts and your impressions of the overall show, what stood to you most, and what you're going to remember most about this year's Oscars. Roth, let's start with you.
I think I think this was an exciting Oscars, because I feel like that this could be the marker, because people that are really smart and do this for a living, people that we know that are amazing Oscar predictors, could not predict what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that equals a very exciting time, and so we do see the few remains of like the old white guard, you know. But I think that you're starting to see this infusion of a new energy, and that's kind of what I'm going to you take it from the host, from Seth MacFarlane, on through who won and who didn't, and the surprises of the night. That is exciting to me, and I think we're going to see more and more of that as the years progress.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I liked. It felt like there was a lot of blending of the old school and the new school, and I enjoyed that. And especially even with the pictures, you know, you've got Amour, which I would say is more of an old school pick. You know,
it's very European pick.
Yeah,
that was what was interesting to me about Amour. It's like such not an American film,
right?
You know.
Well, and
I'm not just saying it's because it's from Europe. I mean, I'm saying like stylistically, it's like so European, you know, slow, and I love that movie though.
Paint drying, kind of thing.
No, I think it's great.
But in a brilliant way.
Yeah,
it's like it's a Picasso drying. You know, and then I think about certain moments that I'll keep bringing up the boob thing, but the boob song was awesome.
We can't say enough about the boobs.
No one has brought up the Jennifer Lawrence tripping on her way up to, which I thought, how many times are we going to see that tomorrow? You know, a million times. Tomorrow. So, but I thought she handled it with grace and humor, and I thought it was good. It shows humanity there, so I like that.
It.
She's fine. She has an Oscar.
That's right. Screw you guys. Look what I got. Yeah.
I think she's okay.
Your overall impression.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for kind of the same reasons that Roth was talking about, where we really didn't know for sure who was going to win Best Picture. You know, because of the way the night was going.
Yeah, especially as it went on.
I mean, there was a few locks that we knew, but like, in general, like, there was no movie that was running away with it. So I like that. It was a bit long, you know, let's cut out some of the excess of fat, you know, but other than that, yeah, I thought it was a good Oscars, and I do like the whole, now that they've opened it up to more than 5 pictures, you get more diversity. I just want them to open up the director category.
Yeah, I love your idea about just creating a correlation between, okay, if your picture is nominated for Best Picture, you're nominated for Best Director, because that picture didn't direct itself. I love that idea. I'm sure there are some downfalls to it, but I'd want to think that idea through a little bit more. I like what you were saying too, Roth. My overall impression is I think this marked a change in direction for the Oscars that they tried to start 2 years ago with James Franco and Anne Hathaway hosting. That unmitigated disaster of an Oscar show that they immediately had. And look, I give them full credit. They did what they needed to do the following year. They needed to recoil. They put Billy Crystal back on the stage, righted the ship, got everything calmed back down, and produced a good show. And then this year, they went at it again and said, it's time to go in a little bit of a different direction. Seth MacFarlane, I just think the audience wasn't quite ready for it. I hope they have the courage to push through that. Not necessarily means bring back Seth MacFarlane next year, although I'd be happy if he did, but keep going in that direction, become a little edgier, keep it a black tie event. I don't want to see one of these other award shows where everybody's showing up in t-shirt and jeans.
Yeah.
Keep the mystique of the Oscars, keep all that, but you can do that at the same time that you're becoming a little bit more energetic, aim at a little bit of a different demographic, and still keep the pageantry of it. I think you can do it all. And I think we saw the start of that this year.
Yeah.
So I'm really quite excited about it. Well, folks, that will do it for us. We are going to wrap up our post-game show for this year, the 2013 Academy Awards. Listen, leave your comments wherever you're listening to us or wherever you're watching this show. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I want to thank us always, I was going to say, Mr. Dennis Tzeng. Thanks a lot, Dennis.
Thanks for having me.
Miss Roth Cornet.
Thank you. You can find me on Twitter at Roth Cornet, by the way.
And Trey Alexander, where can we find you, Trey?
You can find me also at Twitter at Trey Alex Movies and on Fandango.
And Dennis, where can we find you?
At Think Hero on Twitter.
And you can find me at John Campea on Twitter. So once again, thanks so much for watching. Keep going to the movies. We'll talk to you soon.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.